How you doing, everyone? Welcome back to another ESO build video. This is a brand new build for the Nightblade, and it is called Malice. And yes, you read the title correctly. This is a two-hander tank. A tank with a two-hander, and it works. While we're here, by the way, don't forget to hit that sub button and smash that notification bell, because if you don't have that bell pressed, you won't know when new videos go live, and you won't be the first ones to get there. Press the button. Okay, let's get into the video. So, usually I go into the stats, then the skills, and the passive, blah, 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 blah. We're going to go into the stats, obviously, first of all, just to demonstrate that, but we are going into the gear nice and early this time. Anyway, 13.7k max magicka, 47.2k max health, and 22.6k max stamina. If you want more stamina, you can, of course, do that, but that's based on your attributes. If you want to change them and flip them out a little bit, you can do so, but understand, obviously, some skills scale off of health, so the lower your health, the less effective the skills are. It just depends on what you're used to or comfortable with. 1.4, almost 1.5k magicka recovery. Stamina recovery is actually 1k almost, which is really helpful because we are going to need to utilize that when we're heavy attacking or when we're not blocking. And health recovery is not far short of 700, which is, it's nice to have. Now, we are also on just short of 3k weapon damage at the moment. Generally speaking, we'll hover around the 4.5k mark. With buffs and bonuses in trials or dungeons, you will actually get to about 5.6, sometimes even 6k. That is relevant for this build. That's not because you're going to be a damage dealer as such, but it is because it will help us with some of our skills that do scale off of weapon and spell damage. Crit chance is just under 20%. Obviously, if you took a crit pot, you can push that higher. If you had people in your group giving you crit bonuses, that can go higher. You can actually get a healthy amount out of it, but it depends on you as a player, what you want to do with it. Resistances, as you saw, have fallen off. Are 28.2k. You actually go close to cap with this particular build just because of the stuff we're using, but it's not active right now. With a minor resolve in the group as well, you will obviously cap alongside what we're using. Again, 64 points into max health. We are using the Atronach Mundustone to give us more recovery because we do need to utilize some magically costing skills. We want to reuse them. And flat food. Max health, max stamina. No, I do not recommend tri-stat food because your health will go down, making your health-based skills less effective. Your stamina will go down, which will be really difficult for you to sustain. And your magicka will go up when it doesn't need to because I've already got the bar covered with recovery. Moving on. So, straight into the gear. Normally it's skills here. We're going straight into the gear. Because some of this needs to be understood up front before we start confusing people with what skills do and don't do on their own. So, yeah, I know, right? Vicious Ophidian two-handed sword and defending with a weapon and spell damage glyph on it. Why? Why? And the rest of stuff. Bear in mind, this can be changed depending on your ability. So if you are a very skilled player and you can pay close attention to which bar you are on after you understand this set, then of course you can swap this out for the Master's Resto staff, which will benefit you and your group because you'll get recovery from it when you cast Healing Springs, if you're utilizing it. But if you're not, obviously, Vicious Ophidian on both bars, you always get the bonus. Now, why are we doing this? Both on the weapons and on the jewelry. Jewelry is infused with block cost reduction on every single one, and yes, I'm aware it is a diminishing returns stat, but we want to take advantage of the highest possible bonus we can get. So, block cost reduction on all three. This is why we have the Atronach Mundustone, by the way, because we don't have recovery on our jewelry glyphs, so we're taking advantage of that. The reason we have this, all benefits actually, your crit chance is increased twice. That does help with your heals, so happy days. Minus Slayer is meh. It's so-so. We're going to hit stuff, it's going to get hurt, we hit it a bit harder, whoopee-doo. That's not that important. But what is important, alongside the weapon and spell damage, that does boost our heals, and that is for you and the group, except for your personal heal, your own one from your class skill line. That one's actually scaled off of health, but the rest are all scaled off of weapon and spell damage, which is why the rest will be stronger. The last bonus. One of the key problems, there's two actually, but I'll give you one major problem with people using a two-hander as a tank, is that they cannot sustain it for long. Because you don't have the block cost passives and bonuses from the sword and board or the ice staff, your block is expensive. Which means you will have to heavy attack a lot more often. And the heavy attack from a two-hander is really long. So if you're skilled on a single target fight, then of course you can find a gap and heavy attack. But you're going to have to do it a lot. So what we've done here is we've managed to balance everything so we've beaten those problems. So first of all, you've got an 8% reduction to the cost of stamina abilities. The one major stamina ability we're using is very expensive, so that gets the cost down. That's really helpful. At the same time, we've got block cost reduction out the nose, which puts us down to 499. So it costs us 499 instead of the average sort of 1.5k or so that most two-hander builds have. You can get it down to 1k quite easily with sturdy, but that's not enough. So we've got it right down, so even in a big ad pool, we can actually block for days. And also one other major thing, if you damage something and someone in your group kills it, you will not only get a 30% increased speed bonus, which is really nice for a tank being that nimble, but you get 2, 4, 5, 4 stamina back every single time this happens. And it can happen, obviously not all at once, but it can happen once a second. So you can't do it 5 of them in 1 second, but you can get a kill 1 second, get a kill another second, and so on and so forth. And it's really, really, really good. We can basically perma-block in an ad pull. Why have we got a two-hander? Well, because there is a particular skill and set that we can take advantage of, and the only way to apply this on a two-hander, any class build, except for a Templar, is to use Stampede. Now, we'll explain that in a moment, but that rolls into why we're using this other set. We're using the Tormentor, which gives us health, healing received or healing taken, healing received again, and when you deal direct damage with a charge, leap, or teleport ability, or a pull ability, you will gain resistances, which does put us close to cap, and you will taunt the enemy. So, in a nutshell, sturdy on everything, stamina on everything, except for the helmet and shoulders, but you can change those out if you prefer. The helmet and shoulder is, of course, Malabeth, so if you get hit, you put a beam on the target, you get major vitality, your heals that you receive are massive, and it scales off of your health, so the more health, the better. This happens all the time. It's very, very powerful for your own survival, but if you don't want to use that, then you can use something a little different. You can go with, I call Beetleborg almost, which is Roxa the Warped Visage. This gives you a phenomenal amount of recovery, which means you can spam your magical abilities, and I'll get to this in the skills. This opens up an opportunity for you to actually benefit the DPS by applying some executes in there. Again, that depends on how you want to build or how you want to play in your groups. But that's one option, that's another. The rest is entirely up to you. But this one for self-survival, this one for basically everything. Health recovery, mag recovery, stam recovery, the lot. 30 stacks of health recovery, mag recovery, and stam recovery actually amounts to a hell of a lot once you've already stacked them on top of what we've already got in our stats sheet. So we will actually have almost infinite sustainability. We will have recovery while our block is down, and we get resources back while our block is up. So again, the choice is yours, but both of those are really, really good. Obviously, you could use stuff like this, the Archdruid, and put major vulnerability on targets. There's lots of different backflips you can do in the game. There's loads and loads of monster sets. Take your pick, but these two were the ones designed for the build. Now, charge stuff, you taunt, okay? Stuff dies, whether you kill it or not, you get resources back, and everything's cheaper. Now we're going to get into the skills. Hopefully this will start making a bit more sense. So, first of all, we've got Mass Hysteria. Yes, of course, this does apply a stun CC, but above all, it applies major cowardice. So even if it's a boss, you just reduced their weapon and spell damage, so the damage they do to you and your group, by 430. Activate this, leave it running for 6 seconds or so if it's a stun, leave it running for the full 12-second duration if it's not. These are really good skills to use in ad pulls and on major bosses. And the same applies to this one over here, which we're going to skip across to, which is Power Extraction. This one applies minor cowardice, so you reduce their weapon and spell damage by 215. So you actually get both. Yes, it gives you major brutality as well, which boosts our weapon and spell damage. We'll come back to that. But above all, both of these, minor and major, stack together. So in a big crowd, you can basically do this. Bear in mind, the minor actually only counts for 6 targets, whereas the other is an infinite amount. So you've got that and that. So everyone has the debuff. Both debuffs, in fact. Same applies to these guys here. Debuff, 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 debuff. Loads of them. Loads and loads and loads. You might have to cast it twice if they're too far away because it's a very short range. But you can get them all, basically. It's really, really good. So make sure you maintain both of those at the same time. And, of course, remember that the first one is actually a stun. Now, where do you get these from? Aspect of Terror is the original morph for this one, which is in Shadow. So, fourth ability even you unlock. Starts off as Aspect of Terror, morph it to Mass Hysteria. You want this one over the other one because this one is uncapped. Then, the other version of Cowardice, so the minor one, actually comes from the Siphoning skill line. Last ability to unlock. Starts off as Drain Power, morph it to Power Extraction. You will do damage in area of effect. You'll get major brutality. And you will get minor courage as well. So again, weapon and spell damage increase, but you will also reduce theirs. So both of these affect the enemy in area of effect. Now, your next skill, so we have jumped ahead a bit, so we're going to go backwards, is your main heal. This is for you. It's in the Shadow skill line. Second ability to unlock starts off as Shadow Cloak, morph it to Dark Cloak. The other one is a stealth ability. You don't want that. You want this one. Now, all you do is activate it, and it will heal every second based on your max health. Yes, it can crit, obviously, if you're lucky. But if you move, you get a lesser heal. So if you stay still, it can be much, much stronger. And that, although it looks quite small on paper, heals you up very, very fast. Once a second, giving you almost 10k heals, and more if you crit them, is pretty good. Also, if you get stunned or thrown into the air, you count as actually standing still, even if you get knocked back. So you still heal in the air. So it's not so bad if you miss a block sometimes. Next up is Stampede. This is our bread and butter. This is why we're using the Tormentor set, and this is how we taunt. So every tank build needs a taunt. This is the only way to guarantee that Tormentor area of effect taunts on any build that doesn't have the ability to have a class skill to do this. So the Templar has explosive charge. So you can jump in with a class ability. You can use sword and board, ice staff, backflips, do what you want. You can use any weapon in the game. That skill will do it. Other classes, it's very, very difficult to do. 9 times out of 10, the only way to do it is with this skill. You can use teleport and charge abilities from other classes, other skill lines, whatever, but they all affect single target. Even Lotus Fan is single target, because while it affects multiple targets when it lands, the impact is an initial burst on the single target, and then it pops and hurts the rest of them. The initial hit is what counts, and Stampede does have an initial hit. So what you need to do is simply activate it. Every single one of those is taunted. Every single one. Now, it's very expensive, so you don't want to spam it, but you must never let that run out. Taunts last 15 seconds. They are all on you. If you let that drop, they're going to scatter. So apply that, pin them, and then do what you got to do. Bear in mind, by the way, the Nightblade does not have any root abilities for area of effect. They only have a single target root. We're not taking advantage of that because it's a waste of time trying to single target individual enemies unless they're really, really dangerous, and most really dangerous enemies can't be rooted anyway. So bear in mind, you are going to want to take advantage of this stun quite a lot, but also bear in mind that the pull that we are going to utilize, while it does already taunt them, has a hard taunt on it now, not what we joke about as a soft taunt, because chains will give a temporary taunt for 15 seconds, and you can't overlap it with another chain. You can't pull and pull and pull and pull and re-taunt. It doesn't work. But with the Tormentor set that we are utilizing, it actually does. So it counts as a solid taunt, and you can reuse it whenever you want. But the pull counts as a stun CC, much like the stun from Fear does. So they don't overlap. If they're on cooldown, you can't pull them in. So be careful. Now, again, normally you would stun stuff and root it, so when they're in their cooldown, they can't run away. We are going to have an issue with that. Bear in mind, obviously, based on the lazy tank build, you could use Rush of Agony on this build instead of Vicious Orphidian, but you're going to come into 2 problems. I mean, you'll fix one problem because they'll all come in if they're in range, and then you can stun them. But the problem you will have is that you don't have the sustainability anymore. So now you go back to the drawing board and have to keep heavy attacking a lot. This was on purpose. This was done to fix that. Most scenarios that you're probably going to use this in, you don't necessarily have to fight them for very long, especially not since you're doing damage as well. When it comes to this ability here, this is when it starts getting a bit twisted. Refreshing Path. This is in the Shadow skill line. Third ability you unlock starts off as Path of Darkness, morph it to Refreshing Path. The other one does damage, by the way. This one puts a 12-second heal over time in front of you in a conal effect. And it's quite long. It's really long, actually, 17 meters. And everyone inside of this will have a speed bonus of 30%, and they will have Magicka recovery and Stam recovery for 15%, which does stack with Major if they're using tripods, so they can use both. Also, the heal itself is actually 1.2k a second here, but that is substantially more once the build is actually in combat. Remember I said that you have high spell damage, or you will have high spell damage? Weapon and spell damage, actually, they're equal. Well, this benefits. So this can end up being about 1.8 to 1.9k a second heal without crits. With crits, you're looking like 3.5, maybe 4 sometimes. And that you want to keep on all the time. You're very fast. You can get into combat quickly. And you can get out of trouble quickly as well. And so can the rest of your group. Very, very fast, very strong heals. And again, this is just a mild demonstration of some of the bonuses. I haven't put on all the weapon and spell damage yet because we're going to get to that. Ultimate choices is really up to you, but I'd recommend the Nightblade stuff in general, because otherwise, why would you be a Nightblade? You might as well take use of them. If you want to use Warhorns and all that kind of stuff, totally up to you, but we're not. Bolster in Darkness. Starts off as Consume in Darkness. Leave it on your front bar. You get passes from it, but when you apply this, remember we can't root stuff, this does give us a bit of a benefit. So we can actually slow down the enemies by up to 70%. So if you do stun them and they are unstunned now, but they're still on cooldown, which isn't going to be for very long because it's a very long stun that we're applying, they will be very, very slow inside of it. Your group will get major protection for 12 seconds, including yourself, reducing the damage you take. And allies in the area can take a synergy, increasing their movement speed by 70% and healing them for 25k. And yes, that can crit as well, and it scales off of their crit stats. So obviously, the synergy for this is absolutely essential. It also makes them invisible, so they get out of trouble really, really quick. So if this is an oh shit moment, your group just managed to go invisible, run really bloody fast, and heal up to full. It's a very strong defensive ultimate. On the back bar, we're going to go straight to the ultimate here. We've got Siphon Soul, which Soul Siphon even, which is in the Siphon and skill line. Starts off as Soul Shred, morph it to Soul Siphon. That's really hard to say. There's too many S's in there. Somebody say that really, really quickly and see if you do the same. This basically has a channel or a cast time of 0.5 seconds, so make sure you don't need to block when you apply this. And it will give you and your allies major vitality. Technically speaking, you've got this from the Malabeth's Helmet and Shoulders anyway, but when you want it on call, you can apply this. It's very, very cheap. It gives everyone that big boost to healing received, and it also heals you and your group. It's a very short duration, but it's very, very strong. Also, an ally can target a nearby enemy and activate a synergy on them, which does magic damage to them and healing for the damage caused. So this is maybe if you haven't got a healer, or in a situation where the healer's dead, or just in general. It's a very good survival skill. So you've got one for defense and oh shit, we need to get out of trouble, because you can get out of stupid really quick. Or you've got quick, everybody needs a heal. Both of them work really, really well, but bear in mind, if you want to heal out of this one, people have to take the synergy. Now, we're on the back bar. Healing Springs is obviously on the bar because we are using a Resto Staff. That means that we can utilize it for its heavy attack, for its major mending, and of course for its resource return if we are running low. Not to mention, of course, we can now take advantage of Healing Springs, which is grand healing to start with. Now, obviously, this goes on the ground. People get heals once a second while they're standing in it. And because of the way it's morphed, people standing inside this will get 15 recovery per target affected for your magicka. So if you've got 6 targets in here, you've got 15 recovery stacks 6 times for every person. It's actually really, really helpful, not just for survival, but also for resource management. And like I said earlier, if you're really smart and you can manage which bar you're on when stuff dies, so you can actually take advantage of the Vicious Ophidian bonus, then of course, if you sneakily go to the back bar occasionally, you could use the Master Staff and you can benefit from that recovery bonus that stacks on top of it. So yes, everyone in the circle of the initial cast for the first 6 seconds will get magical recovery and stam recovery. So that's actually quite nice. And it's not just flat recovery, it's actually restored stats. So you can even get it while blocking. So again, Vicious Ophidian for the most part, for people that aren't necessarily that advanced, but if you are more advanced, then of course you can swap that for the Master Staff. And that's on the consideration that you may be using the Healing Springs itself. You might not be. Now, if you are not using Healing Springs, you can, of course, take advantage of pretty much any other Resto Staff skill. You're not really limited to that. It depends on the situation. It depends on... That's the wrong skill line. Depends on what you need. Rapid regen's quite nice. Healing Ward depends on the situation. Spirit Siphon, or Siphon Spirit even, is actually quite nice because you get minor life steal and minor magic steal in your group, but you might not need it because you might have blood funnels going off. You might have loads of magic status effects. There's certain situations where some of this will help and some of it won't. But essentially, just put Healing Springs there, and then you can stack these two. This and this for your group. Look at that. Constant ticks. They're low, but they do count, especially for a DPS that might have maybe 20k health. Getting anywhere between sort of 3 to 6k every second for heals is actually pretty substantial. And again, worst case scenario, you're looking at about 3 or 4k. Best case scenario, you're looking at about 6 to 8k a second. In 3 seconds time, that's a DPS absolutely full as long as they're not nearly dead. So that does make a difference, and it does increase survival for your group. And sometimes it might give you an opportunity to not actually go with a healer at all, and you might go with loads of 1-bar builds and this. Up to you. But anyway, let's get into the other skills, and I'm going to tell you what you can do to swap stuff out. So we do want to make sure that we can maintain our stamina. We've got a reduction to cost, we've got a reduction to block cost, and obviously we can take advantage of heavy attacks, which you should. And we've also got resources back when stuff dies. Again, on a single target fight, that's not going to happen so often. You could take advantage of the low block and not getting hit so often, and the low cost. But in big pulls, you want to maintain your stamina. It's a lot more stressful. So we want to use leech and strikes as much as possible. Not only will your heals come from this, but also your stamina recovery resources will as well. So if you light attack, you get health back and you get stamina back. But if you heavy attack, you get much more. A lot more. So this can help you survive and sustain together. Now, if it runs out, you get a big chunk of stamina back. But if you reactivate it early, you'll get back whatever it's built up. It's basically like a pot. Every single second, it will gather stamina and be ready to give it to you back. It doesn't take it off you. It just got initial cost. But it's basically, you're filling up a glass up and up and up and up and up, and you can decide when to drink it. You can have it when it's full, or you can have it when it's halfway. It's up to you. But I would highly recommend utilizing this skill. It's very useful, especially alongside all the stack and bonuses we've got for sustainability, and it makes it a lot easier for a two-hander tank to work. Relentless Focus. I have deliberately not applied this yet. This is important. Oh, by the way, Leech and Strikes is in Siphoning. Fourth ability unlock starts off as Siphon and Strikes. Morph it to Leechin, not the other one. Anyway, this skill has been changed. So, Relentless Focus, coming from Grim Focus. This is the stronger version of the two in regards to its buffs. You don't have to activate the skill anymore. You just put it on your bar. And it doesn't need to be on your front bar anymore. You can put it on the back. So, while it is on your bar, every light or heavy attack you do will grant you stacks. One light attack will give you 1 stack. A heavy attack will give you 2 stacks. If you stack up to 5, you can then fire it and get a heal and do damage if you want. I recommend not firing this, because once you do your first 5 light attacks or you mix in some heavies, you are up to 400 extra spell damage and weapon damage. And this is all you need to do. So bear in mind, our weapon and spell damage at the moment is 2.9k. If you are in combat, you start building these up, even with a sneaky heavy, or even on the other bar, you see that there's a big red glowy sword and sounds happen when you swap bars. That is because this is now glowing. It will glow when you target an enemy. Don't fire it. You can keep that as long as you are in the instance you're in. If you're in a whole trial and you pick that up in the first fight, you can keep it forever. And what does that now do? That now gives us 3.3 weapon and spell damage. Now, if you mix this with Power Extraction, which we're already using for the minor cowardice, sorry, my mistake, we're now sitting on 4.2. When you mix this with our glyph, you're now sitting on 4.7. You can see where this is going. Once you're in a trial scenario or a dungeon group that is utilizing weapon and spell damage bonuses for you and others, you can actually get really high weapon and spell damage. Why is that beneficial? Well, look at the heals. Wrong button. The heals are now much higher. So, you and your group now benefit, just by you doing your job, without even having to try, you now benefit from much stronger base heals and crit heals. Because your flat heal benefiting stats, yes, weapon and spell damage pushes heals and damage, are now higher. So you can survive more, and so can your group. Not to mention, obviously, stuff like this. The actual taunt hits harder when it lands. It always crits on the first hit, then leaves damage over time on the ground. The damage over time on the ground guarantees that you do damage every 1 second, and Vicious Ophidian can always give you resources back if someone kills one of them. That's it. Doesn't need to be high damage, it just needs to be some damage. You've got their attention all day long, and you're contributing. You're gonna need a pull. Silver Leash, Fighters Guild skill line. Starts off as Silver Bolts, morph it to Silver Leash. I have to get rid of those because I'm still in combat. This will pull the target to you. Now, this is a crossover in rules, because generally speaking, since they changed it, a pull will initially taunt a target if it doesn't already have a taunt on it. So if there's another tank in the room and they've aggroed something with an actual taunt and you try to pull it, it will pull, but it won't listen to you. So it's not a solid, hard taunt. You don't fully control it. You just have its attention for 15 seconds, and if you reapply it once it's gone, if it hasn't got a taunt on it, technically, yes, you can retaunt it. But if it's still got the timer running on it, your taunt is a kind of prevention of chaos version. It's just enough for you to get its attention for now, and someone else could take it off you, or you could manually hard taunt it and have full control. However, because we're using the Tormentor set, that does apply an actual taunt, so our chains now count as physical long-range taunts. So that's really helpful. When they come in, they are snared. Their movement speed is low. If they're inside Bolster and Darkness as well, they are incredibly slow. So this defeats the immobilization issue that we don't have. Well, we do have, but we don't have immobilization. And it allows you some form of control. Next up is Razor Caltrops, also for another reason. 2 reasons, but for another one is to do with control, and this is that it's got a snare attached to it also. So you got a 50% reduction to movement speed here. So enemies inside of this, as you will see here, those ones there, while taunted, are slower, so it's harder for them to run away. And of course, you can stun them. It's not the same as stun and root, but it does help and it saves things scattering too much. But above all, obviously, outside of that, it does apply a debuff. So we don't have major breach or minor breach on the taunt, but we do have major breach in area of effect. That reapplies every 1 second so long as the skill is persistent, which means technically it has a 14-second uptime. That can, if you're extremely lucky, apply minor as well. Just bear in mind again, I have to overemphasize this. Taunts last 15 seconds. Don't let them run out. Don't let it go down to 0 and then reapply it. Reapply it at least once every 12 seconds, just in case you get flung across the room and stuff starts scattering. A good tank can maintain a taunt by slightly overlapping it. A bad tank will let it go down to 0 and assume everything is going to be okay. That's pretty much it for the skills. Now, swap outs. If you don't feel like you need too much healing in your group, because everyone's doing great, then of course, you can swap out Healing Springs altogether. Or you can swap out Caltrops altogether if you've got Breach in your group already. And a decent amount of snares. These are the 2 flex slots, if you like. So either end of this, you can swap it out and just put Refreshing Path on that bar. You'll still utilize it for its speed. You still get some nice heals on the ground, and you can just take advantage of the resto for the purpose of blocking and getting magic back, or just heavy attacking for good resources. Then, on your front bar, if you really want to, and this, by the way, when it comes to the gear stuff, is the other helmet set, the recovery one, you can actually take advantage of this. You can actually put on Reverse Slice, and you can start helping your group execute stuff. So if you use this monster helmet, you're not going to sustain it very well. But if you use the other one, you can help do this over and over and over while maintaining a taunt. And if need be, keeping up Caltrops, depending on whether you took that off or not. You won't do that with this monster helmet unless your group is giving you a lot of stamina recovery. But with the other helmet, this one here, which I explained earlier, this one here, once you get to 30 stacks, which you can maintain throughout pretty much most of the content, so long as you're not stopping for too long, you can do that forever. Technically, you can solo with it, but it'll take you a long time. It's not a massive increase to DPS, but it's an increase nonetheless, so you can be helpful in big ad pulls. That is an advanced choice for you. That's not going to be for everyone. And I've lost where my refreshing path is. There we go. Now, passives that are very important. So, assassination passives. First of all, increases your physical and spell penetration against enemies you're flanking. That's never going to happen. Don't worry about it. Delete it if you want. We're never behind the targets, so stuff it. When an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged by you, you restore 1k magicka and stamina. That's really easy. We do this. They're all being damaged. As soon as one of them dies, 1k stamina, 1k magicka back, and 2.4k stamina back. Yes, they stack. Where have we gone? Increases your weapon and spell crit ratings by 438 for each assassination ability slotted. Technically speaking, we've only got that on the back. Not really important for us. Have the passive if you really want it. You might get a lucky heavy attack crit on this bar. Who knows? But it's not essential. You can dump that if you want. And this one increases your crit damage by 10%. Not massively important for us. We're not really focused on too much damage, although we can help with some. But if you deal a crit, you will give the group minus savagery. That is actually quite important. So what you need to do, basically, is when you're on your back bar, it's as easy as this. Let's say a real scenario, a more realistic one. 6 enemies is realistic. All you need is 1 crit. Already done it. That was hard, wasn't it? Should we do that again? We'll wait for this to run out. We've got one skill on the back bar. That's the only one that can apply it. We need to reapply this every 10 seconds or so. As you can see. 10-second duration. So I will put this on them. Look at my bars. Look at my buffs. You see the one with the axe that's now fading? That is minus savagery. Got it back instantly. So that is covered. Shadow. Increases your health, stamina, and mag recovery. Get that right away. Casting a shadow ability grants you major resolve for 6 seconds, but obviously has a longer duration based on how many heavy armor pieces you're wearing. We're wearing full heavy, so we get the full bonus. We have 16.5 seconds worth. So all you need to do is cast Twist and Path. That lasts 12 seconds. You're obviously going to reapply it before the 16 seconds runs out, or you'll heal. Either one of those will give you the major resolve bonus. Happy days, get that as soon as you can. It means you don't actually have to slot a resistance buff. It comes with it. Increases your health by 3% for each shadow ability slotted on your bar. Now, technically, we have 12% of a bonus there because we've got 4 skills, including the ultimate. If you were to put an execute on here for whatever reason, if you were utilizing that for its purpose with the other monster helmet, and you could get away with it, great, but you're going to lose 3% health, so consider that as a downside. And this increases the duration of your non-invisibility-based shadow abilities by 2 seconds, so anything from this skill line has got 2 seconds extra, which is why Twist and Paths is awkwardly 12 seconds and not 10. After drinking a potion, you get ultimate. Your ultimates are fairly cheap. 188 and 141 for this particular setup is cheap-ish for ultimates. It's not that expensive. Some cost 250, none of ours do. So as soon as you take a potion, instant ultimate. Increases your maximum magicka while you have a siphoning ability slotted. We do have one on the front, which is the power extraction, and we do have one on the back, which is your leeching strikes. So that covers that for both bars. Increases your healing done for having each siphoning ability slotted. Front bar, it's 3% because we've got one. Back bar, it's 6% because we've obviously got the ultimate, which means if you are healing on this bar, heavy attacking, dropping your healing springs, whatever, any heals during that time are stronger for you. Casting a siphon ability also generates ultimate. So, of course, if you do use one of those at least once every 4 seconds, you get ultimate back. That's quite easy to maintain because obviously you want to use this. That will do damage and it will give you major brutality and sorcery. And, of course, it will apply minor cowardice and minor courage to you, which, again, with its duration is quite short. I mean, you've got a long duration bonus for you, but minor cowardice is only 10 seconds. So if you apply it a little bit over what you really need to, and you can sustain it, you can actually take advantage of that free ultimate whenever you like. Again, it says every 4 seconds. Don't overspam it, so it's every 4 seconds, but you can sneak it in like every 6 to 8 or so. If you can sustain that, you're pretty good. Now, other passives. Two-handed, obviously, very important. Your light attacks and heavy attacks damage up to 3 other enemies for 100% of the damage inflicted on the primary target. So if you light attack or heavy attack something, even if you crit it, the damage that comes out will be reflected on other targets, up to 3 more. So 4 people in total. Your different weapons give you different bonuses. We've deliberately chosen a sword because we get increased weapon and spell damage, which boosts our heals. Very helpful. Make sure you use a sword. Can you use any other? Yes, of course you can, but you won't benefit from them properly. Get the sword. It's a default bonus. Reduce the cost of your skills from this skill line. You need to do that because Stampede currently is 3.4k. Without Vicious Ophidian, it's a much, much more expensive skill. With a fully charged heavy attack, all damage done with two-handed attacks are increased by 10% for 4 seconds. So if you heavy attack, your Stampede is stronger. And if you were using the Execute to help your group, then heavy attack first, Execute second, and you'll hit harder. And of course, this is very important. If you kill a target, which could happen, your stamina recovery goes up. Now, generally speaking, you'll have to block the big stuff, but you will need to heavy attack to get resources back occasionally. So when you do, if that target ends up dead while you are heavy attacking, or while you're just running around and not actually blocking, your recovery is up. So during your non-block times, your recovery is in a really good spot. Now, resto passives, if you heavy attack, you'll get major mending for a short period of time, but any heals that you do with any skills will be stronger substantially. And yes, that even means procs and all that stuff, they all count. Not to mention, obviously, if you do a full heavy attack, anyone within 15 meters of you, so one person or yourself, can actually benefit from a heal from that. It's not going to be massive, but it can help, especially since it's free. Increase your healing by 15% on allies under 30% health. So if they're lower, they'll get a bigger heal from whatever it is you're using while you have a resto equipped. So this is only on your back bar. Your fully charged heavy attacks restore more magicka. So if you are running low, heavy on the resto, you'll fill it really fast. You restore magicka whenever you block an attack on that bar. So if you get caught, you're in trouble. If you block, you will get 600 magicka back. And that can happen every 0.25 seconds. So you can actually get 4 of them a second. So if it's a really big pull, switch to your resto real quick if you're low. And it will just go ding, 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 and just fill your bar up. Increases your healing with resto stuff skills. So this, again, is only on this bar. But if you've got healing springs running or anything else, then, of course, while on this bar, that will be boosted. No light armor, no medium armor. Ignore them. All heavy armor. Pay attention to these bonuses in your own time. But massive resistance bonus per piece. Health recovery per piece. Restore actual resources for free just by being hit per piece. Maximum health increase. More back from your heavy attacks. And also higher healing received. So you can survive very easily with all the healing received bonuses that we're stacking at the moment. Not just on our passives, but our sets as well. Fighters Guild is important. You are using Silver Leash. You do want Intimidating Presence to get the cost down. We've also got the cost down from Vicious Ophidian as well, so it's really, really helpful, but you've got to get this passive. The others are nice, but they're not essential, but that one is. Undaunted, obviously, we are only using one type of armor, but you still want this passive because you get a 2% bonus to all resources across the board. And, of course, if you take any synergy, you'll heal and get resources back. Take all the synergies you can see. Assault and support is mostly for ultimates for us. We don't really need any of the passives or anything, but if you do want Warhorn or Barrier, that's up to you. We are an Imperial. Now, bear in mind, you can be any race you want. We are an Imperial on purpose. We're an Imperial because we have the highest health bonus in the game, the highest stamina bonus in the game, and a 6% reduction to cost for everything. Yes, that stacks with Vicious Ophidian. Yes, that counts towards your ultis as well. So that is very, very helpful across the board. If you're a Nord, you have less health, less stamina. You don't need the resistances because you're overcapped. But you do get ulti regen. If you're an Orc, you have less health. You have close to the same stamina. But you also have weapon and spell damage, which boosts your heals. And you're fast. So Orc is actually a really good choice. Any other race in the game can play this. Just understand they'll have different passives. And you might have to cater for that. Also, Argonian's mega, by the way. Medicinal use, we are using, obviously, tripods. They give you magic back, stamina back, and health back. And they also give you a recovery bonus that stacks with a minor recovery we've got from Twisting Path. Don't let your bloody potions run out. Even the most experienced people that know full well they should have their potions running all the time. I don't mean just sitting there on your bar. They should be active, because they are buffs. Make sure you actually apply them. If you do so, you'll benefit from the recovery bonus for 47 seconds. Your cooldown is 45. It's infinite uptime if you maintain it. Don't let them just sit there doing nothing and then complain you can't sustain. You can't sustain because you're not applying your buffs. Now, champion points. There's a big fix in here, so we're going to go into the red ones first. Now, generally speaking, all these ones can be unlocked at your own pace. There's no rush for this, but you do want to take this path. Unlock this, just the first stage of it, then get the first stage of this, then go into the health bonus and get this full. Once you've got that full, awesome, we can now start moving along, and you want to go to here. This changes the game for two-hander builds that want to tank, because there is a block mitigation bonus from from Sword and Board and from Ice Staves. We don't have that. If you don't have that, there are mechanics in the game that will punish you for lacking block mitigation, and they will one-shot you no matter how much your health is. Some mechanics are designed to do that, which is why lots of werewolf tanks, two-hander tanks, fail. This problem is fixed with this bonus. In combat, you increase the amount of damage you can block, and you are slower. The slowing down is not a huge drop. You will barely notice it, especially since we've got major expedition buffs and stuff like that. And also, you benefit from 20% block mitigation at maximum. The skills that people forget about are these ones. This is why people with different weapons fail to tank, because they die a lot. Look here. damage you can block by 20%. So, block mitigation bonus. Also, if you go into the sword and board, out of the sword and board even, into the Destro staff skill line, if you are using an ice staff, read at the bottom, increases the amount you can block by 20%. The two tanky weapons have a vital passive that makes the difference between winning and losing as a tank. Any other weapon in the game does not have that bonus. However, we do. So you've got to get this bonus as soon as possible. I tell everyone to go for health and resistances first of all normally. No, this time around, this one is essential. That's the difference between winning and losing. Now, outside of that, these don't need prerequisites. This one, max health, easy peasy. This one, max armor. And this one, recovery. These are your main three flat bonuses that you want all the time, but you've got to get this block mitigation bonus as soon as you can. Now the blue stuff. Blue stuff is flexible. So these yellow ones here, these you can get in your own time. There's no rush to them. You're going to have them eventually anyway. Every single character in the game can. So you are going to want to get them eventually. However, what you really want to go for is here, first of all, in the middle. Get these mitigation bonuses, even small ones, and then unlock Ironclad. 6% reduction to damage from all direct attacks. Lots of attacks are actually direct, whether they're area of effect or single. Doesn't matter. So get that. Get Jeweler's Rebuff for single target attacks, because you're the one that gets hit with those. And area of effect attacks. So you've got area, single, and direct. So bursts of damage are always going to be defended against. Now, this one is for damage over time attacks. Depending on the content, you may want this, but if you don't need it, obviously you can swap these out from one to the other, whatever, whichever works for you, depending on the fight. But outside of that, you want to get this, which is your healing done bonus. 10% healing done helps towards your self-heal and the heals for your group. This does actually make the difference. So if you are trying to help your group survive, or you just need some more survival for yourself, this is a big one. Outside of that, if you're not really utilizing it for all the extra ground heals, then of course you can just stack this and you'll be fine. Green stuff doesn't make a shit's bit of difference. Treasure Hunter's nice because you get more stuff from chests. Steed's Blessing is actually one I would recommend you get, because outside of combat you are faster. But outside of that, the rest of them are all quality of life. They don't make a difference. But again, recommendations: Treasure Hunter, Rationer, and Liquid Efficiency. The running faster, again, is only when you're out of combat. So if you're doing speed runs and stuff, as soon as the fight is over, leg it, you're really quick. But these ones are the two most important trees. That block mitigation bonus is essential. As you can see, though, even not as an orc, you pop something like this, you're rapid. Most tanks aren't that fast. Now, there is no rotation, but there are things that you need to pay attention to. So, you must fire this skill. If you don't fire that, you don't have aggro. You have not taunted. Look at the debuff above the target. You see the shield with the black background. That must be maintained. And don't be really, really cocky and confident and go, I'm going to get it down to the last second and play some stupid Russian roulette fucking mini game with the boss. If that goes down to 0 and you get uppercutted into space and you're over here somewhere, yeah, of course you can jump in quickly, but it's too late. That boss has spun around and punched your group in the face. You are a letdown. You are the problem. And as aggressive as that sounds, that will help a lot more tanks and a lot more groups, and the DPSs will thank you for it. Do not let that run out. As explained to a 5-year-old as this possibly is, you would not believe how many thousands of tanks out there cannot maintain a taunt. It's your key purpose. Aggro. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, apply this to stun them and to debuff them. Apply this to debuff them and buff you. In the meantime, keep your caltrops up and your siphon up. All you need to do then is heavy attack and maintain taunt, and hold block when you need to. In the meantime, if you can manage this, keep your heals on the ground. So, in a nutshell, caltrops and heals on the ground. Targets aggroed and debuffed. And block the big stuff. Heavy attack when you start running out of resources, and reapply your buffs and bonuses when you need to. That's it. Tanking is a very active role. You need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to maintain buff timers or debuff timers, depending on what you're doing for you and the group. And you must keep up the aggro. Anyway, now it's time for fashion, and I don't even have a fashion place. So we need to grab this. Since we're on PTS, this is all free. And we're going to put this down and talk about his getup. So, what are we using? This is going to be quite easy, actually, because basically the whole setup, all of it, apart from the belt, which is Dramathro Light, the whole setup is a Nylark. So we've got the medium chest, the heavy shoulders, the heavy hands, the heavy legs, and the light feet. So he looks mega. The helmet is actually Malabeth, so if you've got the page for that and you're using a different helmet, great, you've got the fashion there. But if you're actually using that actual set, you don't need any fashion for it, it's already there. So that's easy. The weapon, the two-hander, is actually a two-handed greatsword of a Nylark as well, which is actually mega. And the staff is that word that I can't pronounce. Now, the colors are quite straightforward. We're actually using just black and red. So Daedric Red to be specific, and then Cold Harbor Ash for the black. This will be on the website, obviously, with an image showing you which colors are where. If not, you can just pause the video. But yeah, black and red, basically. Easy peasy. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully now have a better understanding of this particular build, why it's built the way it is, and how it functions. And now it's your time to test it out. Take it into content. Make sure you never drop that taunt, and have fun. So thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribing already, obviously hit that button. It is free, and the notification bell is free as well. Make sure you hit that so you know when new videos go live, including some of the new updates and brand new builds that are coming very soon. If you want to follow on social media, there are links down below for those. And of course, don't forget the website, ZonoGaming.com, and Patreon. Thank you very much for watching again, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.